As 2024 comes to a close, do you find yourself wondering where has the year gone? Maybe you're feeling discouraged because you didn't accomplish everything you set out to. Or perhaps this year has been filled with challenges and setbacks that have left you standing at the crossroad, unsure of what comes next. Or maybe you've had a successful year and now find yourself asking, what's next? Wherever you are on your journey, whether you're ready to start fresh in your career, relationships, or even adding to that daily habits, this podcast is for you. Today, I have the privilege of introducing someone truly extraordinary. She's not just a top real estate agent or a certified life and business coach. She's someone who has lived through the kind of challenges that test every ounce of strength, and yet she emerged stronger. From working as a probation officer, helping at risk youth, navigating crisis, to facing personal storms of her own, including the devastating aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, which forced her to leave her family home. She has turned her experiences into a mission to inspire and guide others. With over 27 years of success in real estate and a deep commitment to helping people move through life's most difficult transitions, she is living proof that perseverance and transformation can lead to incredible new beginnings. Her story reminds us that even when life feels uncertain, there is always hope, growth, and a path forward, sometimes in ways we don't even expect it. Now, as a certified coach with training from both Mind Valley and the Jay Shetty Certification School, she empowers individuals to embrace change, overcome adversity, and step into their next chapter with clarity and confidence. Please join us in welcoming our inspiring guest, Laura Dunlap. Hi, Laura.
Hi, that was very nice.
Welcome.
Boy, oh boy, what an introduction. I don't think I've ever been introduced that way, so thank
Oh,
you.
you're
Really
welcome.
excited to be here.
We're excited to have you, Laura. So, before we even go into what the audience wants, like the juicy stuff on how they can navigate changes, make shifts, we're more curious to know about you, your transitions, your setbacks. What significant crossroads your life taught you, and your ability to navigate those changes.
The most significant crossroads that I've probably had at least two things in common, and they would be some sort of pain or loss, and they've required me to really lean on my own reliance, self-reliance. So I would say would be the two things that were common in all of the different changes that I've had to, or hardships that I've come across. I think a pivotal time for me, going back when I was about 15 years old, I was living with my dad at the time, and a lot of change happened that year. He decided to get remarried and move out of state. And I'd always lived with my dad for many years, since I was 7 or 8 years old. And I spent my summers with my mom. And when my father made that decision, my mother decided that my sister and I would not go to return to live with him. And that was a point in time where I felt incredibly stuck between two worlds. And it just felt like my world had just fallen apart. And I just remember feeling really powerless. I was a high school student at the time. I was a 3-season athlete, and I developed a really bad eating disorder. I think as a means of just trying to get some control over my life. And I think I was surviving on maybe like an orange and a Diet Coke a day, something like that.
Mm.
Um, I felt really numb and not in touch with how I was feeling. In fact, I would go home at the end of the day after practice and I would just go to bed. I would just take to my bed just to kind of, black out everything. And I think at that young age was the first time I realized that no one was coming to save me. That despite everything that my parents were trying to do, they had their own issues. They had financial challenges. They had their own personal challenges. They were working long hours. And I realized that I really had to lean into my own self-reliance and figure out a way through this. And so that was probably the first time in my life that I really had to say, you've got to help yourself.
It goes to show that even at that young age, you had this inner knowing that came
Yeah.
to you and said, do something, Laura.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. It really, I think for me, it planted the seeds of resilience and it made me learn to sit with the pain and figure
Mhm.
out, how to work through it when there are really no outside resources available to me at the time. So for me, that was kind of a pivotal point, um, and figure out how I could find the internal resources to get through it.
Yeah, that's really beautiful how you were able to access those parts of you that really knows that you are meant to be, or you're meant for something else, something bigger than the pain. And for a young age to really realize that there's no one coming, and it breathed hope after that, to know that you have to tap into yourself and be resilient. And not a lot of young kids these days can actually have that
Yeah.
inner knowing. And so
Mhm.
how did you tap into that part of you, that even the knowing that there's no one coming, that you were able to get up and access that resilience in you?
Yeah, I think where it comes from, I mean, again, I think my parents were doing the best they could, and I think most parents do, but we all have our own challenges. And I think you're at that point, you kind of realize you're powerless in how you respond to what's going on. So you can either hide from it, like I was doing, or you can sit with it and figure out a way. And it's not always going to be perfect what you do. And so part of it worked out for me, part of it doesn't. But I think that clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. So taking that step forward
Mm.
is where you get clarity, what pulls you forward. Again, there's small steps, but you're moving towards something. And at that point, I think I just had to prioritize myself
Mm.
because I was so concerned about pleasing my parents. My father was upset that I wasn't going. My mother wanted me to stay, and being caught between that wanting to please. And I realized that I had to kind of put myself at the top of that priority list just for my own well-being.
Mm. From what you were sharing, there is that pivotal moment when you realize it was time for you to let go of something, and especially the Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah.
How did that impact your life with your family, the decision you had to make? And how did you summon the courage to move forward?
Well, for Sandy, I mean, they were circumstances obviously beyond our control. It was difficult to let go because that was a home that I lived in for 15 years, probably the longest I've ever lived anywhere. I raised my kids there. They were very tied to it, to the area. And again, my husband was struggling with being there, and it was a case of, you know, kind of a conflict between, again, priorities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, our whole community, I mean, the island where I live was under 4 feet of water. And yeah, it was incredible. And we continued to have flooding after that for months. And yeah, that when
Yeah.
you talk about not having control, that was just like a physical
It is.
reminder. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I think back, there was a time my husband had he had a pretty bad accident when he was working. He was a police officer at the time. And I was about 30 years old, 30, 31 years old. And I realized, that I had um, to be home to take care of him, to be there to support him. I was working at a job that I loved. I felt like I was helping a lot of people. I felt like my contributions were valued there, and I felt as if, well, I'd worked really hard to get there. It was the job that I trained, when I was in school to do. And, I realized at that point um, that I had to leave because of what I valued. I valued my family and taking care of them. So, it's a case of asking yourself often, what do I value less at this point, and what do I value more? And sometimes, you have to make that decision. It's difficult to do, but it comes down to really aligning yourself with what you value most. And as I said earlier, what you prioritize. So that was a tough decision. I did leave my job. I was there for 12 years because I felt like I needed to be closer to my family and to my son. And, that was a difficult time. I would say more recently letting go. What I what I'm going through right now is just as a parent of adult children and letting go of trying to get ahead of them and cut the path down for them like you do when they're little. Chop
Yeah.
the weeds with that machete, get ahead of them and call them forward, and realize letting go for me as a parent is realizing that, my children are on their own journey and that, you can't fix things for them and you cannot protect them from their own challenges and pain and loss because it's going to happen, and to allow them to develop their own resilience. I read something recently, I loved it. It was, it talked about compassion, but I relate it to what I'm talking about is that sometimes you just have to sit in the dark room with your kids, especially as
Mhm.
adults, and just sit with them while they navigate and sit with their emotions and work things out. You don't need to be so quick to jump up and turn the light on. And so I have been dealing with that as a parent of two adult sons, is just learning to let go of wanting to protect them and do it for them, and to let them, um, you know, find their own way and their own resilience and self-reliance.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a lot of courage and brave steps. What fueled this what gave you strength during these times, during these pivotal moments of making these decisions? Because I'm sure it must have been so difficult for you.
I think reflection is really important. Um, I read something recently. It's like pain plus reflection equals progress. And I think that the reflection is super important, um, and has helped me move forward when I've sat down and given myself grace and space, realized, you know, change is hard. It's a hard thing to carry, and accepting the circumstances, what is, and not spending so much energy in fighting against it. Because when you don't fight against it, it changes your perspective to realize what's next. So for me, it's the reflection has been important. My my son gave me this beautiful gift during the pandemic, and that was a time for me that a lot of things kind of happened at once. We had moved from our home, which was very, very difficult. It's a
Mhm.
real difficult move for all of us. We'd moved from our home. And not a year later, my mom passed away suddenly. and my son graduated from college a week later, a week before, actually. She passed away. She died a week later. So it was this convergence of change that was happening all at once because, I know my son was, about to, enter his own independence, and I was anticipating becoming an empty nester, you know. And he had given me this gift for Mother's Day, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Stories Worth. And what you do is part of the gift was he picks a question to ask me every week. So it's 52 questions. And some questions are, very lighthearted, but most of the ones that he chose were pretty deep questions, pretty pondering questions. And it caused me to have to, because he gave me this gift, I felt very, you know, obliged and wanting to answer these questions, but it made me reflect and it made me, because it's this story's worth. What happens is the answers to the questions get published in a book. And so you have a book at the end of that year. And to me, that was the legacy that I was going to be leaving behind. And I think my son got the idea because after my mom passed, I found a journal of hers and I poured over that. And I got to know my mom at a different level that I had never known. I wished I'd asked more questions. So I think he, seeing the effect that that had for me as I was healing through my grief, he gave me that gift. And being able to write, I think, is so important to help you reflect on what's happened and to make sense of things. And again, decide what legacy that you want to leave to the people to help them learn. And I love this quote I read. It's like, life is understood backwards and lived forwards. And so by reflecting with by writing, which I think is a wonderful thing to do, and reflecting, I kind of could understand what happened and also see the points in my life where I did develop that resilience. And it helped me move forward.
Wow, that's just amazing. That really I resonate with that reflection thing because I think it also require a lot of courage to reflect because as human being we're so programmed to just go 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 all the time and
Yeah.
we go into this automatic responses in our lives and days goes by we don't even know what we were doing. And I think that when we take the moment to pause, it requires us to access that courage in us to
Yeah.
really look at our patterns and how we, if we are in alignment with the person that we want to become, right?
Right.
And so it gives us a different perspective. Talking about quotes, I remember, I don't know who said this, but it says that life shrinks, something about life shrinks or expand in proportion to one's courage.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Because it
Yeah.
really, life will allow to give you more or take away how you allow yourself to be courageous in those moments. And I think
Yeah.
reflection is one of those things where it 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 requires a lot of courage to sit
Yeah.
down in quiet, in that dark, and especially
Yeah.
when you're describing about sitting with your kids in the dark and before you turn on the lights, sit with that in what is and just accept because letting go is not the easiest thing to do, especially when you're releasing something that's been defining you for a long time and it becomes part of your identity, right?
Yeah.
But there's the thing is, I think clinging to what is no longer serving you often costs us a lot more
Yeah.
than, the life that we are meant to live.
I think that, yeah, when you write like that too, like a lot of those questions, I had to make a decision. Do I really want him to see, and my other son to see when they're reading about this, the vulnerable side? And
Mm.
I have a friend whose father used to say, "Don't hide your struggles from your children. Let them see your struggles." And I had to make that decision. And I used to think that letting go was giving up,
Mm.
but I
Mm.
realized that it's not. It's an acknowledgement of, you know, what you can and can't control. So, but I think that vulnerability is really important. And I think it's important for your kids and also letting them be vulnerable and not protecting them so much. So it took a while to figure out that letting go did not mean giving up. And the self-reliance is important. But what I realized as I got older is that it had to be paired with support.
Mm.
So yeah, you can do it on your own, but it's important to have a community for support because sometimes that self-reliance, you know, that's not good either because it puts a lot of pressure on yourself and everybody needs help.
Yeah, yeah. No man is an island,
Yeah, it's
right?
true. Yeah,
Because it's really it can be really lonely in your hyper vigilant and hyper independence.
yeah,
And I get that it comes from perhaps a traumatic experience in your
yeah,
life where no one's coming, so I have to be able to rely on myself. No one's
yeah,
coming, nobody has my back, so I better know what my life and the
yeah,
projection of my life from here until the end looks like.
right.
You are so tied in the outcome and goal setting constantly that it takes away a lot of joy, suspense, and mystic and wonder and connection to
Yeah,
what really is important
yeah.
in your life.
And it can be counterproductive because it's an armor that you
Mm,
use too to protect yourself. Like I'm strong, no one's coming to protect, save me, which is the realization that I had, which helped me develop that self-reliance and that resilience. But, I learned later on that you do need the vulnerability is asking for help.
mm,
You can't just use that as armor. That gets you through the battle, but the growth comes in sometimes, you need to have support, and you need help moving forward. I
Yeah.
found that with coaching too, letting your clients be vulnerable, letting them find, knowing and acknowledging that they have everything, within themselves.
These setbacks, these times are really a time to pause. It slows you down. And in that slowing down, in that space, reflection comes. And
Yes.
that's when you get your answers to move forward. It's only when, as you said, when you stop fighting, and that's when the answers come, gives you that boost, that courage to pivot and go and take that
Yeah.
step forward. I love that. Let's take a pause here. I just want to acknowledge to all our audience, if you are enjoying this conversation, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us reach more people. And if you think that this topic could benefit someone, please share the link and spread the message. Let's go back to our guest today, back to Laura. What would you advise someone who is going through similar pain and going through hardships right now? They know that they need to change, but they're resisting that change. What advice do you have for others in this time of their struggle and going into the new year?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I think reflection is a really important part. And obviously, a lot of people do that at the end of the year. They set their goals for the new year. So, but I think before you do that, you really need to reflect
mm,
and you need to figure out what's important to you. So, if you need to do another, assessment of what you value right now, what do you value more and what do you value less? I would highly recommend it because, life has changed. It's going to come and, we have to kind of adapt to it. Um, I think that if I were to recommend a small step moving forward, it would be just, if if you can write, I would highly recommend it. It doesn't have to be, could be on a scrap of paper, whatever works for you. I think that that would definitely help because that helps definitely, like I said, helps you reflect. Um, I would also say again that you're not, the clarity will come from taking a step forward. So just take one step. I would say
Mhm.
an imperfect plan is better than no plan at all. So I have taken steps before and they haven't worked out. But when you start to let go and you ask yourself, kind of shift your focus and say, what's next or what can be, it definitely will, it'll draw yourself forward. And when you set that intention for whatever goals you're setting for yourself, what happens is you start to see opportunities that you wouldn't have seen. When you're holding on to something so tight, it really blocks you from seeing what can be. So if you can shift your perspective, accept what is,
Mhm.
and ask yourself what's next. If you can use reflection, whether it's writing, some people dictate, whatever it is, art is a way of reflecting. If you can reflect on what's happened, just somehow try and make sense of it. And then also focus on your values and what your priorities are. I think it will give you hope, especially,
Mhm.
like I said, when you see those opportunities, when you shift that focus. Um,
Mhm.
your power really lies in what the next step you do, what you decide to do when you're faced with a challenge. So, how you respond, whether you stay stuck or you take an actionable step forward, is going to be, you know, how, it's going to be empowering for you.
At the heart of it, it's really staying hopeful. You're not alone in the struggle, and the setbacks doesn't define you as a whole.
Right.
These are just moments in your story, as we talk
Right.
about writing. And
Mhm.
this setback sometimes can lead you to some incredible growth
Yeah.
if you
Yes.
let them, right? So I think when we
Mhm.
stay hopeful, this is where it becomes really, really important, right? Connecting to hope isn't just about wishing for
Right.
better days. I think when you mention, like, the resilience, staying hopeful is tapping into knowing that there is something better than this.
Yeah.
When you hold on to hope, it feels, um I think it lights up a fire within you to keep moving. Taking that first step can be really, really difficult for a lot of people. So when you're navigating overwhelming emotions while juggling, life's priorities, I mean, you got to take the step back and
Yeah.
and really look at what is priority here, and leading from your heart rather than fear or
Yeah.
um, discouraged about life's circumstance. And so when you lead with hope and with love in your heart, you align your actions through that. So it feels
Yeah.
like life is not leading you, you are leading your life, right? So it create that
Yeah.
ripple, that positive ripple change in your life.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's in the vulnerability the vulnerability comes from asking yourself, what is this teaching me? Or what did that teach me? What did I learn? Sometimes it really requires you to look at yourself. You
Mm.
know, was I trying to be so too controlling, in that circumstance? You really have to examine yourself when you reflect. And that makes you very vulnerable because, if you're led by perfectionism your whole life or fear or whatever the case may be, you have to kind of face that at that point, that
Mhm.
vulnerability. Once you say you realize what did I learn or what was life trying to teach me? How have I grown from that? I think that's what gives you hope because you can see where you've come from. boy, if that hadn't happened, or if I hadn't reacted that way, this wouldn't have happened. This wonderful thing, would not have happened. So when you can look back and make sense of it and see what's come from the growth, then that launches you forward and gives you hope for the future. Because if I did it then, and if I was
Mhm.
able to get through it, for me, when I've looked back with that eating disorder and my husband's accident, which didn't even know if he was going to survive, there was so much uncertainty at that point. I can often then say to myself, I got through it. We got through it. We have this beautiful life, two beautiful children. And so we can get through this.
Mm.
And so that's what
Mhm.
gives me hope
Yeah.
because, you know, I can see what happened before and, what our path was through the real difficult times.
Yeah. People often resist change though, right?
Yes.
It's so hard to
Yes.
to change, even when they know it's really necessary. So being
Yeah.
stuck sometimes in the comfort of pain, it's like even though it's an unwelcome companion, we know that pain very much. So
Yes.
the pain of change sometimes we resist because of the uncertainty that is accompanied by that. But what advice would you give to others who are resisting change, even though they know it's the first thing they need to face?
Yeah. Um, I would say it comes from acceptance.
Mm,
I think you have to really sit and acknowledge how you're feeling, and name your emotions to understand. Um, with my son, for example, when my sons were getting older, I had to learn, like, that I had expectations. Um, I had to realize that my expectations were maybe unrealistic at that point, or, what I was feeling was disappointment, you know. And so I think it's really important to really
Mhm.
sit with how you're feeling, acknowledge it, name it, accept that you're not in control of your circumstances. And like I said, I think that can be really freeing because when you can detach from what's going on and then look forward, you can focus your energy there versus fighting, what you're going through at the time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
Focusing on what you want
Yes.
rather than spending all your energy just fighting what you don't want.
Yeah. What's happening? What is? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And then you
beautiful.
you can create an intention to work towards that, you know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think sometimes resisting is a part of ourselves that just so afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, like what you said, acknowledging where you are in life is also really important to just acknowledge that, yeah, this is scary. Something
Mm.
new is scary, and I don't know what lies ahead. I often remember what this quote by Rumi. He said, let's see if I can remember it. Try not to resist the changes that comes your way. Instead, let life live through you, and do not worry what your life is turning. No, and do not worry that your life is turning upside down.
Hmm.
How do you know that the side you are used to is better than the one to come?
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, I love that.
right, we
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know. Maybe this particular
Right.
struggle and the crossroad that you are in is going to be the very thing that will propel you to the life you're meant to live. And
Yes.
so
Mhm.
to align your heart with intention and courage and hope. I love
It
that.
reminds me when we made that move, which was so difficult,
Mm.
and we were just all so like heartbroken to you have to leave the place that, and let me tell you, it wasn't far away, but we had such memories and such a such a deep tie to the people there. And I remember saying, we're just, we have to make the best of it because I'm just going to live in the now, in the moment. And that's what reminds me when you shared that, because, and find the good in where I'm at, and there was a lot of good. So those hardships really drove me towards growth. I knew, again, no one was coming to save me, and I had to do something. And quite impulsively, this opportunity came up, and I signed up. And, you know, I would never have imagined, back then I would be here. And I just feel like our lives are always evolving.
Yeah.
We're always growing. I think Jay said something. We don't stop growing when we physically stop growing. People think it's like 18, we're done, but we're always growing if we allow it. And our lives are always evolving. That was something my mother had said in her journal. You're always evolving until the end. And when I looked at her journal, I could see the growth, and it was pretty amazing to see. So I think looking at other people's lives and their stories, and as well as examining your own story, is really important. Telling your story, writing your story is really, really powerful.
Mm. So what you're saying, Laura, is that there's no wrong decisions. There's only growth. No
Right.
matter what path you take,
Yes.
as long as you're taking that step forward, there's growth.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, Natasha, that was great. Yeah, and there's no, it's true because, yeah, you'll see where, again, looking back, you'll realize why that step was important, or how that step got you to where you currently are. And it's all learning. It's all learning.
Yeah. Gosh, we
Beautiful.
can talk for
I know.
For another
I have
2
more
hours, right?
I have more questions, but we're gonna
To
come
be
to an
continued.
end. Yeah, to be continued. We want to have you again back here soon because there's so many things that you're a wealth of knowledge, and there's a lot of experiences that I think that a lot of people can resonate with, from being from eating disorder to getting married to personal storms, death, grief, a lot of that. I think there's a lot more there that we can talk about. But for now, we just want to really thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
And sharing your vulnerability and your knowledge and your lessons for others and ourselves. I've learned so much today. But we're going to go to a rapid fire quickly.
Right. Let's crack on, like I always say, right?
God, I like that.
What's one thing you're excited to leave behind in 2024?
I think that, I think it would be an attachment to the result. So doing things just for the sake of doing them versus what the result would be, the achievement. So I'd like to just let that go and just do things just for the pleasure of doing them, giving myself that space and time.
Good. Yeah.
Ooh, I might nick that actually.
I'm going to jump to this one. What's one thing you've learned this past year that you're bringing into 2025?
One thing I've learned. I just continue. I think it's a constant continuation that, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a lot of cringeworthy thing. But if it's truly like worth it, you just have to take that step forward and, not be so concerned about making a mistake. Yeah.
Yeah. If you could pick one word to define your 2025, what would that be?
I would say adventure.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I'd like to taking those bold steps forwards and just trying things and doing things that I haven't done before. Kind of, continue to challenge myself to see what I'm capable of.
Mm,
Mm.
I love that. It's that a part of also the adventure of traveling.
Hmm.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We are at the end of our conversation, but before we let you go, please share with the audience where they can find you or mention about any new project that you're looking to launch. Yeah, any social media contacts, how they can get in touch with you if they want to work with you.
Okay. So what I'm working on, I just did a workshop on values and goal setting. So I'm working on workshops for some group coaching because I come from a background of teaching too. So in the first job I had, one of the things I did was teaching. I love to share information and as coaches, we just love to see people realize their own potential. It just for me, I was a cheerleader all my life. Not really a cheerleader, but as a parent, you're a cheerleader. And
Yes.
now I'm a coach. But one of the things that I love is just seeing that light bulb go off and seeing people make that connection. Oh, wow, and realizing what they're capable of. Um, so I'm working on some workshops. Another one is money EQ, which I find fascinating. Continuing to take courses because I'm a lifelong learner, but sometimes I'm a little addicted to learning. So what does Jay say? Learn, love, launch. So I'm launching now. Um, so you can find me on Instagram, Laura Dunlap Life Coaching, Facebook, Laura Dunlap Life Empowerment Coach. I just started a group, Sisterhood of the Second Act, for because I coach a lot of women who are on their second act or maybe their third act, where they're maybe ending careers and starting something new. They're empty nesters. They're just trying to find that next step for themselves in life. So I just started that. And my website right now is paperbell.me/Laura Dunlap Life Coaching. So you can find me there. I just started creating that. So if anybody wants to talk more with me or, set up an appointment and learn a little bit about myself, I'm also on LinkedIn. So I mentioned I'm a real estate agent and I also have my life coaching business. But in real estate, we deal with people in change all the time. I mean, why do people buy and sell homes or businesses? They're usually in the midst of change.
Yeah.
So they're navigating major changes in their lives and often a lot of stress. So, so I find there's a very big parallel to what I do as a life coach and a
Yeah.
business coach. Yeah.
That sparked a memory from one of our conversation, Laura. You said like, is it 5 Ds of what is it called? That's it's funny
Yeah.
because it stuck with me, but
Oh, really?
didn't stick the whole elements of it.
Yeah.
Share with us what are those big changes that people go through in life?
Yeah. So the 5 Ds in real estate are diamonds, right? So people are getting married, starting diapers, they're starting families, um, divorce, downsizing, usually through retirement, and death. So those are the 5 Ds. So usually when we're working with people, they're in the midst of some sort of change that they've chosen. Oh, we're going to get a bigger house, or change that positive change and negative change. I have to let go of this home because someone has passed away, or I simply can't afford it anymore, whatever the case may be. So for me, it's I realize that even prior to my or since my career working with young people who are in the midst of crisis in their families, even in the real estate, we are coaching. We're coaching people to help them navigate through major changes in their life.
Mm.
So besides all the sales stuff and everything, my approach to that business has always been what's your goal? What outcome do you want? And how can we help you reach that goal in spite of everything else? So it's been rewarding because I really get involved in their stories, what people are going through, how they get through it, and how they make decisions is always really interesting to me too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Really
Five
love
Ds.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
thanks for sharing that. And what a
You're
great
welcome.
ending to the podcast as well.
That's true.
Laura, from the bottom of our heart, thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge with us and with our audience. And for our audience, don't if you haven't caught where you can find Laura, we'll put the link in the description in the video below, so you can go in the description and find Laura there.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Laura.
much.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
It's been a lot of
Bye.
fun. Thank you. Yeah, when I'm working with people, we do a values exercise. We I have a list of values, and there's two things I use. It's either a list or there's actually an app that's really good that helps people. It asks questions and helps them narrow down to their top five values. And we're not talking about like cultural values or, we're talking about core values. And what I find with when I say younger people, I'm talking about young adults, in 20s. What I find is that they're so unaware of what they value, that they've been told maybe, and not in a malicious way or whatever, but they've been told what they should be doing, the structure of school and society of how you're going to get ahead. They kind of follow a plan that has been set for them. And when they get out of school, oftentimes they're lost. They start to work and they realize this is not what I wanted. This is not what makes me, feel alive. Uh, they feel really drained. And so when we start doing those values exercises where we kind of narrow down what it is that they value, the light goes off. And then they start to see opportunity. They start to think, okay, this is what I value. This is what my priority is. This is where I want to set my intention to either get more skills to be able to do what I want to do. Or I had one woman who she was working in a bank, but she wanted to write,
Mm.
but the bank paid the bill. But that's what she went to school for too. But and then she realized, I can do this. But it was just getting focused on what she valued and what she, you know, and then also focusing on what she needed to grow, what skills maybe she needed, what knowledge that she needed, and then, what kind of contribution she wanted to make. What did
Mm.
she want her legacy to be? What did she want to give? So once we start to focus on those things, it really it's a shift in mindset. And I think then it gives people the ability to, or the energy, the momentum
Mm.
to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the change happen when your intention and your values are in alignment with
Yeah.
what is in the heart, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's when magic happens.
Yes. And like I said, then they start to see opportunities that they didn't see before. Like, oh yeah, you know what? I could start doing that. Or, I know such and I could volunteer over there and that might give me experience. So they start to also find the resources within themselves
Mm.
and then say, I could do that. Or like they make those connections. That's fascinating for me to see that.
Yeah.
Um, I always tell in my not so great moments as a parent, I, I've said to my children when I get frustrated, I tell them, be resourceful. You know, you can figure this out. Be resourceful. And that's what I think working with younger people, you try to show them how to be resourceful.
Mm.
And that means figuring out, you know, where their core values is, what their priorities, and how they, and giving them that momentum to move forward and go after whatever they want.
Yeah, that's such a great reminder for people who are also stuck, right? Be resourceful. And I think that's what goes out the window first, is our resourcefulness when we feel stuck, and that when we
Yes.
find ourselves at the crossroad,
Hmm.
because it feels like choice has been taken away from us, and that the rug has been pulled from under us, and that we are hopeless and helpless. And I
Yeah.
think that's such a good reminder that we have a part of us in inside that is resourceful. You didn't get to the age that you are in right now without knowing how to figure things out. And
Right.
sometimes it just takes that one person to remind you that
Yeah.
you have the resources, you have the agency, you are
Yeah.
not helpless. Go out there and figure it out. All right.
Yeah.
And you, as a coach or as a mom or as a friend, you know, I'll be right here with you. Let's figure this out together.
Right.
But I'm not going to
Yeah.
fix it for you. Right.
Yeah. Let those emotions settle and that overwhelm settle,
Yeah.
and give yourself the space to just sit with it. And
Yeah.
that's what I meant. It's like, I don't want to, I would do things and I was like, okay, what's the result? What's the result? Like what has to happen? And, you get to an age where like time is moving fast,
Yeah.
and I don't want to spend my energy as like, what if this doesn't work out? Or, what if this doesn't succeed? I just want to enjoy the process. If I'm going to create a piece of art, I remember saying to somebody, well, what am I going to do with it when it's done? Like, and I'm like, who cares? Like, just do it because it's fun to do. Or, just create these workshops because it's interesting. You're going to hopefully touch one person. Who cares? Just be in the moment and don't worry about that. Like I said, um, or that post that might be cringeworthy because you put it out there. Like, just put yourself out there, just lay it
Yeah.
all out, because we don't have a lot of time in the end. I mean, time just moves really quick. And I was just telling to somebody that person that just moved. I said, you have to look at your life as you're expanding it right now. I know it feels like you just lost something, but you're gaining too. You have to look at its expansion. It's not you're not shrinking, you're expanding. It feels very uncomfortable right now, and it's scary and it's uncertain. I get it. But you're opening up your world. And I think when we get older, what happens is our world contracts. I tell my kids this too, because I also see it with younger people. Suddenly they contract their world, and I'm like, at your age, your world should be it should be expanding still. You know, you should be adding things to your life. But I think when we get to a certain age, it's about subtraction. Just naturally in life, we lose people, we lose friends, we lose relationships, we lose things. And when I was saying about adventure, I'm not ready for my world to shrink. I'm not ready to like contract. I'm still looking to expand. So that's why I say I'll try to push myself to see what I'm capable of, what opportunities come my way, and just look for them. It's almost like a treasure hunt, you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
oh, where's this going to lead me?
Yeah, I
Like, if I do
agree.
this, what's going to happen? Who knows? It's like you look around every corner.
Yeah.
Um, about what's going to happen today. Like, and rather than, oh, what's going to happen today? It's like, oh, what's going to happen today? Maybe I'll find it today. Maybe it'll be around this corner. So yeah,
Yeah. A
gets you
treasure
excited about, yeah,
a
treasure.
treasure hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
like
one of
those synchronicities or those the magic, you're looking for it. And then when you journal, you're like, oh, that's the magic happened right there.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
you're not expecting it. So the
Yeah.
surprise is even more fulfilling because you're not looking for it. It's like Christmas every day.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of
Yeah.
the most dangerous sentence I hear a lot about people who are growing older
Mhm.
is telling themselves the story of it's too late for me,
Yeah.
right? And then as you realize that your world is actually, you know, contracting.
Yeah.
And so when you say it's not too late for me, then it's
Right.
expanding. because it's
Yeah.
all in the mindset as well, right? Because what we
Yeah.
think we become. And
Absolutely. That's a gremlin that's in my mind all the time. When I hit 60, I was like, oh, Laura, aren't you just too old for this? Like, what are you doing? And that's a gremlin that creeps up in my mind from time to time. But I had two parents who said, they reinvented themselves. And there were times that they didn't, they failed at what they were doing. But especially my mom, it's funny, on her third career, she actually, I said the same thing. I'm like, Mom, you should be retiring. And she was so successful and she took a bold leap and she was in her late 60s when she did it. So I had really good examples in my parents in reinventing themselves and kind of pursuing their interests.
yeah. And your
My
dad.
father went, yeah, yeah. My dad went back to school at 50 and became a psychologist. It's something he always wanted to do. I found interviews when he was 20 and he was a football coach. And he said he'd always want to work with people, counsel people. And, he was a teacher for a long time. So, yeah. So, but it's true. I think I saw, you're never any younger than you are today. So
I love
don't
that.
wait. Yeah. But yeah, so I try not to think about age, but sometimes there's physical reminders.
There is those physical reminder, but I think that as
Mhm.
we sharpen our mindset, I think our body will catch up with
Yeah,
that. Because if our mind says it's too late, then your body will follow that.
yeah,
And I know that, of course, biologically, our body changes also as we age. And I think that is a moment to be kinder and give ourselves a lot of grace and
hmm,
patience, and some of the activities that we might not have been able to do now, might take us a little bit longer, but it doesn't
yeah,
mean we cannot do them, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that when you hit a certain age, for me, it's 60, you do have more space that
Mm.
you didn't have before because as much as how hard it is for me to let go of my children's and like, let go and let them be on their own journey, it's really freed up a lot of space for me, even mental energy, to be like, hey, what do I want to do now? And I can spend time on the things that I want to pursue, knowing that they'll be all right and that this is an important part of their lives now for them to, you know, be on their own journeys. And for me to be like, okay, what do I want to pursue? I want to return back to the things that, give me joy and, satisfaction. So, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's the coaching was certainly a big part of that, or, you know, uh, I just started playing golf again, which is
Nice.
a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Swimming, all the things, that I used to like to do, photography. So yeah, I was trying to explain to people when you're setting your goals, you be like a 2-year-old, ask why. One of the goals I had was to get in the best physical health I have been in a long time. Why? Comes down to I want to feel confident in my body again. Like I want to feel confident in this vessel so that I can do the things that I want to do. It's not certainly I love to look like that person I had in the picture, but it's also just about being comfortable in movement and doing the things and having that energy and that sort of thing. So,
Mm. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's important, no matter what shape you're in, if you feel strong, physically strong and, capable of, you know, uh, getting around and doing the things that you want to do, it's super important.
Yeah, yeah. And that's when you mentioned also from, previously, is that that's what resilience is. It's not
Yeah.
just our mind and our um, soul to be resilient, but also our body to be resilient,
Yeah.
and that comes with taking care of your physical body because you
Yeah.
can't.
And, resting too. Like that's something that I just started saying, it's okay. You know
Mm.
what? Just take the day.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you.